6 years ago, Ellis Hammond's entire mission changed. He was a full-time college pastor with vision and passion, but broke. Now a full-time real estate entrepreneur, Ellis is the founder of Kingdom Real Estate Investors, the #1 community for faith-driven leaders impacting the world through real estate investing. If you're a kingdom-minded real estate investor or entrepreneur seeking to advance God's kingdom outside the church walls, welcome to the Kingdom REI podcast, where Ellis interviews Christian entrepreneurs and investors focused on advancing God's kingdom through real estate investing. Enjoy the show.
Guys, we have Marcus Pittman on the show. Marcus, you didn't know this, but I already started the episode, and I love that we're jumping into this. I'm so excited for this episode, man. Like, you're a storyteller. You're helping other storytellers get their message out into the world, especially Christian-based storytellers, and really giving, power, I guess, back to really kingdom-minded folks who want to tell their stories, and apart from Hollywood, which I love that, man. So, guys, if you don't know, if you haven't heard of Marcus, he serves as the founder now and CEO of Loor. It's LOOR.TV, a streaming platform with a plan to disrupt Hollywood and give filmmakers and subscribers freedom, unlike anything the industry has ever seen. So today we're going to be talking about the power of story, especially if you're a real estate investor. I mean, guys, we've talked about story so much on the show. You know how powerful this is. Well, here's a guy who's really giving other storytellers the ability to tell that in a huge way. He's also a crowdfunder, a guy who's raising money. I think there's a lot we can learn from you, man. You're a marketer at heart. Like, what you're doing with Loor TV, like, that's marketing. So I'm actually excited to learn, what ways how much money did you raise on a crowdfunding platform when you launched Loor?
We haven't done crowdfunding investment.
Well, you were raising money on I saw that on your Instagram where you were bringing funds in that way, right? What was that?
So the way we started, man, we just start with this shirt that says Christian movies shouldn't suck.
Amen.
We just had that tagline, and we said, look, we're going to build a streaming platform, and it's going to be focused on the non-cheesy, pure flick sort of family-friendly content that we normally see, and we're going to make actual stories that are told by Christians, conservatives, along those lines, right? And so we started with that. We raised $500,000 from seed investors.
Yeah. So you raised money at what point?
Yeah. I mean, everything is crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Right. Like, McDonald's is crowdfunded, right? So that's how they can get their bulk orders of meat to you, and all their potatoes, right? So it's all every business is crowdfunded at some level. We've been very open through this process because when we started, I didn't know anybody that had any money to invest in anything. And so we just started talking openly about it, and they came to us, and we were able to raise our $500,000. We raised that pretty quickly, and then from there we spent.
Hold on. So when do you mean you don't know anybody? You raised $500,000, dude? There's a lot of people who are thinking like, what do you mean you didn't know anybody? You clearly had to know somebody, or you had to know somewhere to go.
I had one contact that got us the first investment that I knew, but everybody else I didn't, and it was actually we ran ads on Gab that just said, because Gab was the only place that would let us run the ads.
What's
but
Gab?
It said Gab.
Yeah.
Gab is an alt social media platform run by Andrew Torba, gab.com. And so they opened up an advertising platform. And so we started running ads on Gab, and the ad just said no more gay movies. And because of that, we were able to we got investors contact us on our website. We were able to talk to them and vet them. And
no way.
Yeah. And so we did basically 50,000 minimum and got 6 investors in relatively quickly. Spent the last year and a half basically building out the technology platform, the beta side, and we've signed 25 to 30, well, no, we're near 30 now, 30 movies and TV shows to be funded on the platform. So,
amazing, Marcus.
Yeah, it is amazing, because they told us that we need $100 million to be able to build this thing out, and we're proving them wrong.
Who's them?
It was people that have just been in the streaming industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, they said this is how
The
much it is.
them always are wrong, by the way. Like,
Yeah, the
screw
them
the
are always
right?
wrong. That's absolutely right.
Yeah. Guys, welcome to the Kingdom REI podcast show. This is not how we traditionally start, but we're already in this show, so we're going to keep it going. And because I find this so fun and fascinating, just hearing someone who's in a totally different industry doing something very similar to what a lot of the folks in our community are doing, which is competing with a very large them, like the industry of institutional capital, the hedge funds, the black, those type of groups. And finding a way to tell a different narrative to attract investors to fund their projects so that they can run their businesses, their portfolios, their investments from with Christian values and ethics and principles. And so really we're fighting the same battle, Marcus, right? Just in different industries, which I love that, man. But so I'm curious, before we get into maybe some of the things that you're clients are working on, like let's talk about the story you were telling and how you as a marketer kind of crafted something that was just different, that attracted those initial investors and even the folks that you're working with today. Like let's start there.
Say the question one more time.
Yeah, like you had to tell a story first before you could allow other people to tell a story, right? Like even that first ad, that attracted a certain audience, right? Like that's not going to go over well in most circles.
Right.
So let's talk about like even how, man, you think about telling a story and defining an avatar and raising that initial money and even, how that might help our audience who's trying to do the same thing.
I started, the only thing I've ever done in Christian media has been like controversial content.
Yeah.
That would not have been accepted by, the PureFlix crowd or the family friendly sort. Like I did 2 documentaries. One was called Babies Are Murdered Here on abortion. And the other documentary I did was called Babies Are Still Murdered Here. And that Babies Are Still Murdered Here, we put on Amazon Prime, and then it got deleted and removed. And so I said, okay, well, we have to solve this problem of storytellers not being able to have anywhere for their stories to be seen, right? And also Amazon was paying like no money for it. So it was like we were getting like a nickel for every 1,000 views or something ridiculous like that. So it wasn't a real possibility to make a living through Amazon Prime. It might give you some sort of passive income, but not a lot. And so when they deleted it, I said, okay, so we have a massive funding problem and we have a massive distribution problem when it comes to funding content that we want to see, that a lot of people want to see, but the gatekeepers don't want those stories to be told. And so, I just use that. Like that's the story is, my movie was canceled. And when we did Babies Are Murdered Here, it's about these people who go out to abortion clinics with signs that said, babies are murdered here. And that was controversial, even in the pro-life community with, and by pro-life community, I mean like the big lobbyists for the pro-life industry were not happy with that. And with that sort of messaging, they wanted it softer and, and whatnot. And so, we were told no one's going to watch a movie that's called that, nobody's interested in seeing that. And we just did it anyway. And it started a movement. I worked for, I got hired by a pastor named Jeff Durbin and went to go work for his church, Apologia Church. And we built Apologia Studios pretty much on the abortion subject, and we were the first to live stream with professional camera gears outside of abortion clinics. Almost every other day we were doing that. And so that was back when nobody was live streaming hardly anything at that time. And so we started sort of make a name for ourselves by doing that. And so I've always been in this real fringe, edgy Christian content sort of stuff, not talking about the happy, positive K-love sort of mentality. And but that's where all the revolutions start, right? Like HBO and MTV, and they all started with this just mentality of let's just give the artists the freedom to do what they want, and that's how those empires are built. And so when we started Loor, it was like let's create a streaming platform where the artists are free to tell their stories? They don't have to do, diversity quotas. They don't have to, change their scripts to, to meet the Hollywood executives' demands for content and stuff like that. And they could just go right to the audience. And so that's really how Loor was built.
I mean, well, clearly there's a demand and market for this. I mean, I look at, that the Chosen series, right, and what they've been able to accomplish based on that very similar narrative. Like,
Right.
let's fund something, and not be held to the demands of Hollywood, because we want to tell our own stories, right? And I think there is a massive audience for this. And what I appreciate about what you're saying, and I've said this a lot in telling stories, is, guys, if your message does, like, I think a good story, Marcus, I'd love to hear your input on this. It does two things. Like, it attracts the right audience, and it also repels the wrong audience. And I you know what I'm saying? Like, it has, like, for it to be strong, and it doesn't necessarily, like, and because here's what I mean. Like, if it doesn't repel, it can still be a good story, but it is not going to create this, like, unbelievable movement, conviction from the people who accept it. And if you don't believe me, look at Donald Trump. Regardless of what you think about him or not, the guy repels people. And because he repels so many, he also attracts and, like, has created a Trump religion around this same principle. And it's just true. Like, if your story doesn't both attract and repel, I don't think it's powerful enough.
Right. That's right. I mean, that's why, Chick-fil-A and Hobby Lobby have such dedicated audiences, right? Like, people are very passionate about Chick-fil-A, and they're willing to fight for Chick-fil-A, and same thing with Hobby Lobby. It's the same, they went and they fought all the way up to the Supreme Court for contraceptive, the right to not give contraceptive with Obamacare and stuff like that. And they won. And so that's created stronger loyalties to their brands. And so for us, we knew the hurdle that we had to get past is basically how PureFlix defined Christian media or conservative media either too. Right?
Hey, I'm not familiar with that term. You keep using it. PureFlix. Can you define that?
So PureFlix was is basically one of the largest Christian streaming movie platforms that started from basically the movie God's Not Dead. And then from there, they made a lot of money on God's Not Dead and decided to invest into basically a streaming platform for Christian movies. And in so doing, all the movies were sort of watered down. They had a policy that, like a 5-year-old and a 95-year-old has to sit on the same couch at the same time and, and watch the same movies together, which sort of just took any sort of realness to any story out, because anything offensive was pretty much taken out. So all the movies became this sort of, positive and encouraging sort of Hallmark sort of movie. And also they were marketing towards the Lifeway Christian bookstore shopper, which is 35-year-old female and above, right? So there's no male content really. So we decided that if we're going to get past basically the genre that they've built, which is they turned Christian movies into a genre instead of saying that Christians can make all movies. And so if we were going to get past that, we had to basically find the audience that hated Christian movies as much as we did, and then want to fight to make them better. And so that's sort of what we've done. But also too, we're trying to repel certain investors away too, which is really important, because if you look at how the Marxists have kind of taken over every institution, from media, television, movies to food, right? Like, they own everything. And so that's sort of what we needed to do, is we needed to get investors that are just that want to make profit, of course, but also are seriously devoted to the mission of what we're trying to do in the long term, in terms of building out a cultural institution and a storytelling machine that can actually, have an influence and is combative, like in the same way Netflix is combative in sort of the controversial stuff they tell that's against conservatives or against Christianity, we can be combative in the same way.
Yeah, I love that. And clearly that was well thought out because you had to know who to say no to before
Mhm.
you begin to take on funds, which, I think is really a key part of
It's
that.
important.
Yeah. That's really amazing, man. Cameron, sorry, we just got going, man. I
Hey,
know you haven't
Cameron.
even
Hey,
unmute.
what is your value proposition to investors? Why would people invest with you? I would. I love that idea. I'm just curious, like when you're going out and raising all that money, what was your pitch?
Yeah, so the pitch is pretty simple. It's we're creating what it looks like when Netflix and Kickstarter have a baby, right? Like that's pretty much what we're doing. We're you can go on Kickstarter now and you can fund a movie on Kickstarter, no problem. But once that movie is made, you don't have a distribution or a place where people can see it. And so what we're trying to do is take what worked for Kickstarter, which is basically crowd investing or crowdfunding. More crowdfunding than crowd investing. So Kickstarter's so take that, but also provide the platform in which people can watch it too. So there's sort of the ability to have for the users to have a victory when a project is funded because they get to watch it. And so like the series that we launched during our beta, those episodes of TV were already done. And so as soon as an episode reached 100%, it streamed immediately for everybody that was on the platform, whether they funded it or not, right? So they're building this platform together. So the value prop is really, we want to create a system, a storytelling machine that decentralizes power from Hollywood executives in making the decisions for what the monthly subscribers watch. So that's really what we're trying to do, is we're trying to decentralize the C-suite in Hollywood.
By the way, guys, again, pulling out key nuggets about story here. What Marcus is doing too, he's creating a natural us versus them. And I hope you hear that. And that's another massive, powerful thing about a good story and a good brand is there's an us and a them. I mean, look at Apple back in the day. It was Apple versus Microsoft. You remember those commercials, right? Of like the old guy in the suit, right? And then like the young kind of trendy guy. There was an us and a them even there, right? So, and clearly this is what Marcus is doing. And
Well,
so,
every good ad campaign is us versus them, right? So like Sega versus Nintendo in the 90s, Sega had that famous ad that said Sega does what Nintendo don't, right? Like that's a great ad, right? And then Chick-fil-A too, could you eat more chicken with the cows holding up signs, like that's us versus them. Like there's very clear distinctions in any good business that knows, this is why we're not, this is why Hobby Lobby is not Michael's, right? Like this is why Chick-fil-A is not Burger King, right? Like so it's simple to do. Even Disney has set that apart with their content, right? So they know Disney is for families and children. They've always been that, and they're not, R-rated movies, right? So at least for a long time, they haven't been. And so us versus them is really important, but it also, I think it protects you.
One of the best us versus them in our space, Ellis, in real estate is Grant Cardone. Like he ropes people's money in this idea is it's us against the Black Rocks, all the middle class little folks against BlackRock.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
it just pinned himself as this guy who's going to come and attack all these institutional giants with average ordinary people's money. And, he's bought a lot of stuff.
yeah, he's doing it. Yeah. I mean, and I think a lot of folks have kind of been on that curtail too, right? Of like the same thing. I mean, it's how some of these massive crowdfunding platforms have been able to have success in democratizing real estate in a sense. And so, no, I think it's really powerful. And I think the concept you're explaining, Marcus, is, like I said, I was super excited for the show for this very reason, because I knew how much we'd pull out of this. Do you see this going beyond Christianity, or is this just for kind of a Christian focused audience?
No, we're a Christian brand, but we are definitely more than happy to have non-Christian produced content. So we're trying to think more globally in terms of building this brand out. So what does that look like? And every streaming platform has rules for what can and can't be on the platform, right? That's how they define their brand and niche. And so, for us, we just pretty much have no nudity and no blasphemy, are probably two of the main ones that we look to in terms of rules. But other than that, we just want a good story. And if we like the story, we'll put it up to the audience and see if they like it. And they like it, we can get you the money to make it, or the money to pay the licensing and distribution fees for it.
Let's move into your model of kind of raising capital now and what that looks like. Before you were kind of, seed capital, however you did, but what does that look like now, and how do investors get involved, and kind of what is the structure you're using for raising funds today?
So we've long completed our seed round. And so now we just did our successful beta. Basically what we wanted to do with the beta was to see, would people be passionate about a website that they would continue to go back to week after week and fund projects if there wasn't a lot of content on the website, right? So that's sort of the question. Do people want thousands of hours of mediocre content, or are they willing to pay per month for like 10 good ones? And so that's sort of what we wanted to see, and it worked incredibly well. So we got all the data for that, all the user comments and reviews, and so we could prove the model out, so technically. And then now we're doing a Series A round at a $5 million. And so we're looking for accredited investors to come in and to sort of help us get this next round going. So
this is where I get curious, and sorry if I'm lagging a little bit. God, I've had Wi-Fi problems all day. I'm so sorry. I know a guy, I'm friends with a guy kind of like you, real creative. You're very obviously smart man. I would just like to know, what is the end game for this streaming platform? Like, what's the pinnacle of it? Is it continuously funding so that Christians can make movies that don't suck?
No, the end game is to create a streaming platform that allows us to tell stories that are culturally impactful, much in the same way Disney has done, right? Much in the same way Netflix has done, right? And so think of this in terms of, the best way to put it is because there's obviously the financial end game. We would love to be $1 billion company, have millions of monthly subscribers and funding content, like crazy, right? But there's also the more cultural impact, which all storytelling studios have a desire to do, make cultural impacts. And so for us, that looks like being able to put out documentaries or be able to put out stories that basically influence how people vote, or how people decide their government should be run. So a good example of that is how Hollywood does it. Hollywood put out, Ellen back when she came out on her sitcom, and then they did Will and Grace, and then 10 years later you have Obergefell passing gay marriage. So Hollywood is really good at understanding that in order to really change the culture and move, the government, or to move politics, you have to have the hearts of the people and the minds and imaginations of the people. And that can't necessarily be done with talking head commentary like Fox News all the time, 24/7. At some point you have to have just a good story that makes you love your wife more, or a good story that you and your children can sit around the table or sit around the TV and watch and enjoy together and spend family time together and create those traditions together in a way that doesn't offend, the father doesn't have to like cut the TV off because he doesn't want his kids to watch the rest of the movie, right? And so that's really the ultimate game. The ultimate game is to basically be propaganda for a conservative worldview, and liberals are really good at using stories to change laws, right? So a good example of this in terms of how terrible we are is we're arguing about abortion or Roe v. Wade right now, right? That's happening, right? And you'll see conservatives say, oh, well, what about rape and incest? And then the conservative goes, well, rape is only like 0.05% of all abortions, or it doesn't happen that often. And then, the liberals start sharing stories of women who were raped and, and how awful it was and how thankful they are, so it's all this emotion versus all of our facts. But if you look at scripture in the Bible, every time we're given laws, like the 10 Commandments, every time we're given laws, it's through a story, right? Moses goes up on the mountain, and there's the burning bush, and then he comes down the mountain, and they're worshiping the golden calf, so he smashes the tablets, and he goes back up again and gets another copy, and then comes back down. Like, that's the story. That's how we get the law, right? So even in scripture, we get law through story first, stories first, and then law. But conservatives are just terrible at that, man. And so, that's why I think someone like Grant Cardone is doing such a great job in the real estate market of sort of pushing that narrative, right? He's pushing stories. He's telling stories, and with that comes money and influence.
Hey, marketing question. Where you said you talked about Gab earlier. Where are you finding your audience of conservative Christians to really support this? Where are you looking? Where are you finding? Where are you showing up?
Yeah, I mean, we're everywhere. So we're on Facebook and Twitter and so pretty much all social media. We're doing the alt tech platforms too. So we're going to start a Truth Social account. We'll start a Gab account, like all that sort of stuff. We're just trying to go everywhere. One of the big places we found our audiences have been going to, there's a lot of Christian film contests and stuff like that, right? So going to the conferences for Christian films or conservative films, or just trying to really get into the Facebook groups that are about family friendly streaming and those sort of things, and saying, look, we're offering you something different. But we're also going after males. Men have not been given good quality content that speaks to them. Like even, Daily Wire, who's putting a lot of money into content right now, the past 4 movies they've done have had a Rambo style female action lead, right? And so it's like, well, where are the men? Where are the men coming to fight and rescue their wife and children? Like, where is that? And so what we're trying to do is really create basically this audience that attracts men and that want content. Like we say, we're looking for men that don't want to see anyone naked but their wife. So the no nudity content, all that sort of stuff. But also, action packed is fine. Violence is fine. They tell good stories, and so we have ways to do that. And so that's sort of the stuff that we're looking to open up, and just the market just doesn't exist.
Yeah, dude, this is fantastic, man. Like it opens up so many ideas. I think it's giving me more resolve on, for both of our companies, both Symphony and King REI, like defining more clear who the them is, what are the stories that we're consistently telling. Like I imagine, Marcus, you've told some pretty consistent stories. I've heard you talk about like you're talking to men a lot, so you're kind of using some of the same examples. Because you've told this a lot, I'm sure, right? So like I think for me as a marketer, like, and I love this episode because anyone who's listening to this right now, like if you're trying to fund your deals, like you are a marketer, you are a storyteller, right? And if you're not telling these stories, someone else is, right? Like we've said Grant's name 10 times, which makes me mad today because I'm like, why aren't they saying Cameron's name or Ellis's name? Because he's the one telling the stories. Like, and you could be telling the same stuff, but he's out there going and getting market share because he's just using a principle that Hollywood's been using for decades, right? And is doing a really good job of shaping culture and telling a narrative. And guys, if you don't believe that story is the way to grow your business, man, this has been a great episode for that. Marcus, I would love to give you a chance, man, to just again point people in your direction and continue to be of support. And I love the mission and vision of what you're trying to grow, man. Where is the best place to follow along and to learn more about your platform?
Yeah, if you go to loor.tv, you have all the information there, LOOR.tv. And then for investing, if you're interested in investing, there's an investor tab. You can click on the investor tab, fill out the form, and then I'll get back with you. But right now we're doing our Series A round at 5 million. and which is honestly, that's not a lot of money for the film industry. Right. So the good thing about our platform is, where Netflix is spending $1 billion a month acquiring content, we share that risk with the filmmaker. So we don't have to front millions and millions of dollars to get the content made prior to people watching it. They can decide if they want to spend their money and get it made. And so that's really helpful for us. And it's actually, I think, a secret weapon. Not so secret, but it's going to be a great weapon, because we don't have to spend millions of dollars a month acquiring content, whereas the other like the other platforms.
Yeah, the thems.
Yeah.
Marcus, this has been so fun, man. I'm so pumped to meet you. Where do you live?
I'm in northern Idaho.
Okay. Do you like
Yeah,
it up there?
yeah, it's really great. Yeah. So where I'm in northern Idaho, our CTO and COO is in Raleigh, North Carolina,
Yeah.
and we're just kind of remote for now, and then we'll see what happens
Cool.
as we raise.
Yeah, well, man, it's exciting to hear more about this, and get some exposure to your platform. I'm looking forward to following along and seeing. I need to go check out the movies, guys. Let's go see what he's got on his platform, Loor.tv, LOOR.tv. And if you're interested in supporting this and being a part of this movement, guys, go check that out as well. Thanks again, Marcus.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
All right.